All right, I'm going to try this again and see if it works. See if anybody can join me. I just switched internets. The internet's going off and on. See if this will work. I don't know if anyone's going to see that I'm on. Oh, Nicole, there you are. Just you and I. Is it working? Am I back? It's live. Am I good? Yay, I'm back. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. You guys are joining. Yay. Okay, it's working. It's working. Let's try again. All right. I was just waiting. 1 second. Okay. I have 30 minutes almost to get back to the DNA and talk about DNA. So let me get right back in. I'll leave the first part up. You can go and listen to the first part, but here is take 2 of where, how, and how DNA was created. Okay. DNA is a structure. It's a structure that holds light codes. So DNA is not the human body. DNA is not who we are. DNA doesn't make us. Okay, so the first thing we have to realize is DNA is just a label or a term, okay, that is actually a vessel or a structure that holds light. And it holds light codes. Codes are information. Okay. What actually creates the physical body are light codes. And what your consciousness is inside of this is light codes, DNA. So before we dive a little bit deeper into DNA, I want to remind you, I'm going to go back a little bit and remind you of how the human body was initially even created, because DNA was designed for the human body. It wasn't designed for other species or other galactic beings, not in this 12th dimensional grid, okay? Not in this experiment. DNA was created for this experiment, for Earth's experiment. When these higher dimensional, and if you're, I don't want to go back too far into the history because one, I don't have enough time. So go back and listen to episode 1 if you're completely confused about this. Higher dimensional beings created the human form through intent and energy. So they had an intention of, let's make a human body that would hold consciousness, that would evolve. Okay, that was the intention. And let's create it through energy, because that's all we have to create from anyways, is energy. Okay, so these 12th dimensional beings that are part of the experiment here on Earth, that participated with Earth, who is a consciousness, in order to create physicality and go through this experiment of shifting from one dimensional field to another dimensional field in physicality, they knew they needed some sort of physical form. Okay, so the other myth that's running around out there is that the humans came from somewhere else. That's absolutely not true. The human is a unique experiment and experience. The human body is very unique, and the consciousness within it, okay, is what came from elsewhere. But the actual physical human body has been uniquely designed for this experiment. All the other hybrid species that you see that have kind of human aspects to it were hybridized or created through taking the human DNA, the DNA from the human body. And again, that's just light codes. DNA is just the structure that holds the light codes. All right. So first and foremost, higher dimensional beings had an intention, and they created through light and energy intending a human body and energy. They took their 12th dimensional light and they moved it down into, originally it was a 5th dimensional human body, but I'm just, for the practice of this lesson, so to speak, I'm going to say a 3rd dimensional human body, 3rd dimensional human field. So they had to take this higher light and they had to move this light, high frequency light that held information, down into a physical structure. The only way that light can exist in physical form, like as a physical structure, is that it has to be held in something. The light codes have to be held in something in order to exist within this realm in terms of creating physicality. So 12th dimensional beings had an intention in creation, attention and energy. They created a human vessel. They took the light, the energy, with all the information. Here's how we're going to have the human body. It's going to look like this. It's going to do this. Here's the organs. Here's the eyes. Here, all of it. Here's the way the meridian system. Here is the way in which energy systems are going to work. The way in which a channel is going to work. It was all created. It's all designed by higher dimensional beings. And they took that information, those codes, information, and they moved it down into originally a 5th dimensional field of existence and then a 3rd dimensional field of existence. In the 5th dimensional field of existence, okay, these light codes that create a human body and create your ability to shift into higher frequencies, it's held more in a crystalline matter. So crystalline is more of a combination between like a physicality and a light. So crystalline is see-through. In a 3rd dimensional field, they had to move the light all down into a carbon-based structure. So a carbon-based vessel is what holds the light codes. The light codes are the information that creates the physical body, and the light codes held within this DNA structure, carbon-based DNA vessel, the light codes also are what activate the spirit that's in the human vessel that chose to incarnate. These light codes will activate the spirit or soul into their divine purpose, why they're here. So it's going to activate the soul, the remembrance of the soul. It's going to activate the purpose of the soul. It's going to activate multidimensional abilities. It's going to activate multidimensional traits. It's designed to be activated. The way in which these light codes are activated is through this high frequency light from the sun. So the light comes in and it activates these 12 strands of DNA, or these 12 strands, these 2 strands of DNA that are actually 12 strands. It activates the codes, the light codes within it. So the purpose, the entire purpose for DNA is it allows for the evolution in human consciousness. The DNA is literally what holds this entire evolutionary shift in consciousness. If we didn't have the vessel of DNA, this human body wouldn't be created, and you as a consciousness wouldn't be able to be inside this human vessel and activating and opening up into who you are and why you came here. It's all being allowed because of the structure we call DNA that holds the light codes. So again, these light codes are condensed down into a structure that in the 3rd dimensional physical world is called carbon. The reason they used carbon is because carbon can shift. Carbon is a physical matter that can shift into higher states. So it's the same thing as taking an ice cube and the ice cube melts. It shifts its state. Okay? The states shift. It goes from matter, right, into a different liquid, and then eventually liquid into air. So the same thing is happening with the DNA structure within your physical body. It's changing states. And it's designed specifically to change states. That's why DNA is so unique to the human experience. DNA is designed to shift states. DNA is not designed to create physicality. And so as the DNA structure changes its states, right, what it does is it starts to expand into a consistency that is more crystalline or light. It starts to open and expand its vessel. And what's making that happen is the light codes are activating within this structure. And as these light codes activate, it shifts the state of that vessel that we call DNA. And the way that this light is activated is light comes into the body over and over. And this is a natural process that you cannot control. You're not in charge of this. You cannot activate your own DNA. You can try, but the sun activates it, and not the regular sunlight that you get when you sit outside. There's a different frequency of light that's coming down that activates these light codes. So I want to say one thing. You are not made from DNA. You are a consciousness inside a physical body. And this physical body is created by light codes. And these light codes are held within a structure called DNA. You are not DNA. You will never be DNA. You are not made out of DNA, and you are not made from DNA. The only reason that humanity has that conception or understanding is because they don't see beyond the structure of DNA. They only can see the DNA. They can't see the light codes beyond the DNA within the DNA. So a scientist is going to look inside, and it's going to see all these cells, and then it's going to see however the DNA looks. That's just the structure. That's just the physicality. Underneath, beyond that, in the non-physical world is actually what is creating this entire experience, including the physical form. So it's a massive misconception that we are created from DNA, that it's our DNA that creates everything. And it's a massive misconception that we came from some sort of hybrid combination of some other species and created this human body, this human experience. This is a very powerful, very unique, very mind-blowing experiment that we're in and on planet Earth. And the human body was specifically designed to go through this very unique evolutionary process of going from one state of consciousness to another state of consciousness, which most other species that you're aware of are not physically doing. You don't see Palladians or Sirians or Arcturians physically shifting their state. Humanity is. That's why humanity is so unique. Now, what did happen is that other races came in, other species came in, because they were so mind blown by DNA. They didn't understand it. They had never seen it before. And so they came in and they started doing these scientific experiments with DNA, which is just a structure that holds light codes. How is the structure holding light codes? How did they do this? How did they create this? Now, you also have to remember, if you go back to, I don't know, episode 1 or episode 2, physicality, there is no physicality after the 7th dimension. So you don't need DNA in 70, 18, you don't need DNA. DNA is only necessary to hold light and physicality. Okay? So there are no 8th dimensional, 9th dimensional, 10th dimensional beings that have DNA. It makes no sense. If you start to remember what DNA is and what light codes are, you'll remember how this works. You'll remember how this entire experiment works. And so there are two types of two sects kind of DNA. There is two types of DNA is basically what they said for the book when the book came in. So, and again, DNA is just what's holding the light codes, but I want you to imagine two types, okay, that create the entire 12 strands of DNA. By the way, the reason there are 12 strands of DNA, there's 12 strands of DNA in your body right now, held within the 2 strands of carbon-based DNA. Okay. And again, the reason they used carbon is because carbon is a matter that can easily shift states. So it can move into a more crystalline state. And when it does that, the light codes have the ability to expand and to be experienced and to be felt, to create life. What was I saying? What was I saying? Someone tell me, what was I saying? Oh, there's 2 types. Okay. So there is 10% of your light codes. Thank you, Lorie. 10% of your light codes, 10% of the DNA structure holds light codes that create the physical body. 10%, that's it. 10% of your light codes, which are held in your DNA, create the physical form. The eyes, the mouth, the nose, the arms, the fingers, all of that, the organs. Now, again, if you're a scientist or you're super science-based, you're very physical-based, you're going to argue about this because you're going to see all of these ways in which this is not true. That the DNA, there are 2 sects. There's the sect that only believes what they can physically see, and then there's the group that understands that everything's energy. DNA is not energetic. DNA is physical. Light codes are energy. 10% of your light codes, the DNA held in your body, eventually move to 12 strands. 12 strands are in the 2 strands, right? Evolution is that there are 2 strands that are going to evolve to 4, 5 to 6, 7 naturally through the process of light from the sun moving in and expanding it, activating it. 10% creates the form. It simply creates the physical body. Now remember, these higher dimensional beings, through intention and energy, created the physical form, and then they took the codes that created the physical form and condensed them down into strands of physicality, structure, crystalline structure or carbon structure, and placed it inside the vessel, placed it inside the body. It created it. 90% of your DNA, 90% of the light codes are your Akashic record, your divine blueprint, why you as consciousness came down, your purpose, and the multidimensional abilities, traits, ways in which you are designed to be on this planet. 90% of your DNA that has not yet been activated or is starting to be activated is the Akashic record, your divine purpose, and the multidimensional acts, abilities, ways in which you are going to evolve into a multidimensional human. That's held in that's the light codes, that's information. So the more light that comes into the body, the more these codes are going to be turned on. And the more they get turned on, the more you're going to remember who you are, remember why you're here, remember that you created everything, and remind you of how to do this from a different, higher perspective over and over and over again. So there's a constant evolution. And what happens as this evolution occurs is that what was created in the Akashic records, the soul contracts, and all of these things, you start to step out of them because the light codes begin to open, expand, shift. And what once held you in these lower frequency light codes right? The lower density light codes in the Akashic record, which are contracts to help you learn things, core consciousnesses like trauma, abuse, lack, things that we're seeing come up over and over and over again, these denser energies. They may be held in your Akashic record as a consciousness that you wanted to perfect or master in this lifetime, which means experience over and over again. They're going to start to dissolve. It's going to start to dissolve. It's going to start to go away. It's going to not be experienced in the same way because you're evolving out of those light codes that were held in that Akashic record. Okay. And so then what starts to be experienced in that Akashic record are the light codes that are in a higher frequency, which is your soul purpose, right? So more and more people are going to be activated into this deeper awareness of why they're here. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that's right. I have a purpose. This is why I'm here. Oh yeah, now I remember. So the interesting thing about the fact that there are two types of DNA or light codes within the DNA and light codes is that there's a massive amount of experience that most of us haven't had yet because the light codes haven't activated. And again, it's exactly why we are poisoned, because the poison literally, when we are poisoned by foods, by water, by 5G, by information, when we are poisoned, right? What it does is it blocks literally inside the cells. It blocks the light. The light is blocked from activating the light codes, which are designed to naturally turn on, right? And so that's why you see this evolution, this shift in humanity, where they're starting to become aware over and over again of what may be, quote unquote, kind of poisoning us. And this includes information. Information is poisoning. Mind control is massively poisoning. Thoughts infect the cells. Thoughts will infect your cells. They will become a blockade to the light as well. And so humanity is going to continue to be shown what they need to see. This is also what is so profound about this human evolution, is that humanity itself is going to create the traumatic events that they need to see in order to remind them of how this natural process of evolution works, which that it is literally an ice cube melting into water. It has to be in the sun. It needs to be pulled out of the fridge, right? And so that pulling out of the fridge is awareness. Awareness of what's being experienced, awareness of how this works. Awareness that the human is not DNA, that we are not hybrids. There may be hybrid species that have DNA, but the only reason these species have DNA is this because they came into the human experiment and they experimented with the human DNA. If other species have DNA, it's because they came in and they accessed the DNA within the human body. DNA, this is going to really trigger people. DNA was solely created for the experiment that we are in right now on planet Earth and the human evolution. It was this miraculous, what the fuck is this? Brilliant creation that allows for light to be condensed down into physical form, still having the ability to shift states within that form. So if you look at other species, what people may or may not understand or may not talk about, right? Whatever higher dimensional species you want to talk about, what happens, they are the light. Their physical form is the light. Okay, so let's just take a Palladian. A Palladian is that dimensional aspect. They are that, right? So what's so unique about the human experience is that there's a consciousness inside it that's being contained within a physical form. When you decide to become a Palladian, let's say, right? You take on the whole experience is the Palladian experience. Like you're not separate from, you're not inside a Palladian body. You're not inside a gray, being. You're not inside a Syrian or whatever other you're not inside it. I mean, essentially, yes, you are, because you're God and you're spirit, right? But when you decide to be a different kind of species or whatever that is, you become that. You are that species. This is very, very, the human experience is so different. That's why all eyes are on us. Because as soon as other consciousnesses, other species, other galactic beings recognized what these higher dimensional, 12th dimensional beings created, they were like, holy shit. They took light codes, information. They created this physical vessel in the way that they did that is capable of holding high frequency consciousness within it. Not only that, but the physical vessel itself is going to elevate into higher frequencies. And the consciousness within the physical form is going to become more and more aware of itself, because it has the information of who it is and how it's designed to work here inside the light codes, which is inside the DNA. So as more and more light comes onto the planet and more light moves into your physical vessel, the 10% of the light codes, the 10% of your DNA, which is the physical form, is going to evolve or shift into higher frequencies. Those 10% light codes are going to start to naturally shift into higher frequencies. Your physical form is shifting frequencies. 90% of the light codes that are in your body that you brought in are going to give you access, more and more access to the Akashic record, more and more access to the purpose of you being on the planet, and more access of how to be in higher dimensional ways. And the you that I'm talking about is the consciousness that brought in all 100% of these light codes the moment you chose to incarnate into this physical form. When you incarnated as the consciousness that you are, the moment you did is the moment that all 100% of these light codes came in, and boom, now you are holding inside the body, or the body is holding, but you brought it in, 12 strands of DNA that look like 2 strands of carbon-based DNA that are actually encased or holding light codes that can activate into 12 dimensions if it wants to, that holds the key to everything, all of the ways in which you are designed to be. And so your carbon-based DNA is going to eventually shift to a crystalline, a higher frequency structure, because the light codes within it are going to get higher. There's going to be more light codes activated. When more light codes are activated within this sausage of a carbon-based 2-strand DNA, it's going to open up and it's going to shift its frequency. When the frequency starts to shift, the cube of ice starts to melt. So this this very, very dense matter starts to shift into more and more light or crystal. And the 2 strands start to open into 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. And your body starts to shift into new and higher dimensional states. Your awareness begins to shift more and more. The ways in which you are being on the planet start shifting more and more and more. You start accessing more of your multidimensional gifts. So you start seeing differently. You start hearing differently. You start feeling differently. You start acting differently. You are interacting with the world differently. You're in more of a flow state. Your heart starts to open. You're in a more trust. You are You're no longer responding necessarily from these trauma-based ways, these denser ways. You're not necessarily looking in the past all the time anymore, and you're not projecting into a future anymore. You're more present. You're like all these ways that we are experiencing our reality right now is the slow and meticulous evolution in human consciousness, which is simply the DNA changing structures, changing states of its structure, because the light codes within it are being activated, which naturally holds the information to take you through this, your consciousness. It's all divinely designed. And it's insane. It is alchemy at its finest. This is alchemy. DNA is an alchemization that is mind-blowing. We did not come from another species. We did not come from any other galactic species. Like, that is watering down this most what the fuck miraculous thing we call the human experience. This is like nothing this universe or this quantum field has ever seen, not in the unique way in which it's designed on this planet. And in this 12th dimensional grid, and go listen to my video on the 12th dimensional grid so you can understand that, but everything that is in this 12th dimensional grid is designed and created solely for this Earth experiment. Everything. DNA was solely designed for the human experience. DNA is in every single physical form that you see, because that is how the higher dimensional beings that were participating with Earth's creation of what she wanted, that's how they were able to take light, move it into physical density in order for it to shift and evolve. We are miraculous. The human body is miraculous. What you're experiencing right now is out of this world miraculous. There is nothing mundane about what's happening. Nothing. And any conversation that describe, even the conversations that have been had around that we have reptilian DNA. No, there's reptilian DNA. There's reptilians that have human DNA in them, and they're existing off planet, or they're trying to bring themselves into a physical form. But humans do not have reptilian DNA. There is no such thing. There's no such thing. There's other species that have DNA in them because they came onto the planet at some point millions of years ago, 500,000 years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, thousands of years ago. I don't know when they came in, but the experiments are stopped now after the last 80 years, but 90 years, 100 years, but they came in and they took human DNA out of physical form so that they could manipulate it and understand it, because it was so freaking mind-blowing. There you go. 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 I forgot a lot of stuff. I'm sure I did. I tried to squeeze as much as I could into 30 minutes. Does anyone have a question? So again, you're not DNA. You're not actually shifting your consciousness inside a physical form. That physical form was created from light codes that are held within the physical body in a structure called DNA, 10% of them. Everything that you are evolving yourself into as a consciousness, all the ways in which you are being, is held with that DNA structure, opening up information, availability, access. This is all DNA, which is our light codes. The information is with all DNA is the light codes holding is a structure holding light codes. Light codes is information. Information is inside your body. And it's very simple. Everything on this planet is designed to be very simple. We complicate the shit out of everything. Everything. So I want you to remember, the takeaway is this. What you are experiencing right now, my friend, is the remembrance that you are a consciousness, a spirit, a soul that chose to incarnate into what is one of the most miraculous physical designs ever, which is called a human body. When you came in, you had 10% light codes that created the physical body and 90% light codes that created the Akashic record, your soul's, your purpose as soul, and all the ways in which you were going to be navigating and expanding into this evolution in human consciousness, which is a shifting of frequencies or energetic states. And the only way this is possible is through light codes that hold the information of how this works. And the only way light codes can come down into physicality is they have to be condensed down into a physical structure and held there. And light has to come in to activate the information. If your body is in a lower frequency than that light code, you won't have access to that information. Okay? And the majority of our light codes are in higher frequencies. We are having to activate it through the body, increasing its frequency. So when the body increases its frequency, the light codes begin to increase. When the light codes increase, the frequency of the body it increases. So it's like a symbiotic relationship. But the majority of your light codes are still held in higher frequencies. So they become activated when more light comes into the body, and they become activated when your physical body starts to hold more and more light. It's a natural process. This is how the evolution in human consciousness is possible, through DNA holding light codes. Without that, you couldn't be here, and we could not be moving through an evolution in human consciousness. This is why DNA was specifically designed for this human experience on this planetary body. And anything else that says they have DNA, or anything telling you that you have reptilian DNA or half DNA this and half DNA that, doesn't understand the simplistic expression and experience of a very simple divine design. The human body holding consciousness, called spirit or soul or whatever you want to call it, designed to increase the frequency of its body, of the body, and the abilities to be able to navigate it through the information that is held within the body, called light codes or DNA. Got it? Good. Oh, I gotta go. I love you guys. Mwah. I have an event that started at 5, 1 minute ago. Love you guys.